Hello everyone, welcome back, thank you for joining us. In this video, we will discuss the glass material and the reflection inside Unreal Engine using different methods, which is the GPU light baking method, Raytrace, and also inside Unreal Engine 5 with Lumen enabled. So let's get started. So we'll start by creating the glass panels from our window frame that we have modeled earlier in our previous tutorials. I'll put a link in the description below if you have missed that tutorial. So we're gonna select this window frame, isolate it, and then go into edit mode, press number 2 to select the edges, and we want to select these loop of edges around the frame. So I'm gonna press an Alt, then left click with the mouse, then add also the other loop on the other side by pressing Shift and Alt and left click. Then Shift D to make a copy, P to isolate it. Now if we select this now and then isolate this also, we'll see if we go into edit mode, select vertex from the edit mode, pressing A to select all the vertex and F to create the polygons. Now we still have one step to do. In case you have followed our tutorial of modeling this window frame, you can see that the groove that we have created is also modeled on that glass panel, so we need to remove this by selecting the vertex. Make sure it's in the wireframe, so we can select the front and the back, right click, dissolve the edges, exit the edit mode, press on the dot on the numlock so we can zoom out and zoom in again by selecting it, and then select these vertex, right click, dissolve edges. Alright, so after we have removed all the unnecessary vertex, we can now isolate the front from the back to create separate window glass panel. So I'm gonna go into edit mode again, select the front face by pressing 3, then P to separate it. Now let's exit the isolation mode, and you'll see that if we unhide all of that, you'll see that we have created a front and a back. Now this will come handy in case we want to add a different texture of details to the front glass panel, and this is what we're gonna do. Now before that, let's make sure that our normals are in the correct direction. So if we go and select the face orientation, we can see now that we need to flip these faces by going into edit mode, select all, and then Alt N, flip. The same also for the back side, Alt N and flip. So now we know that our normals are heading the right direction for these glass panels. Okay, so now we're gonna create the same glass panels on the other windows, but let's start by adding an extra details for the front panel that we have created here. So we're gonna export this to Quixel Mixer to add a few details that will help us achieve that in Unreal Engine. So I'm gonna select the window frame and the glass panel and unwrap them, then export them to Quixel Mixer. Before that, let's make sure that our front glass panel have a different material, and let's select them both. Hit Ctrl I to invert the selection and hide. Now I'm gonna select them all, head to the UV editing and view Smart Unwrap, and now we have all the faces unwrapped in the right direction. Okay, so we're ready to export this to Quixel Mixer, and let's see how we're gonna add these details. Now inside Quixel Mixer, after importing our object, and because we have two materials, now we can separate them by using that material identification. So I'm gonna add a solid color for the glass panel, and let's make the color in white, and make sure that the roughness is set to black and the metalness to white, and we have a perfect reflection. Now we're gonna add also another solid color and make sure that this is black, again with the roughness and the metalness, make it white. Now we're gonna add, by right click, a paint mask, and inside our online library, inside the Quixel Mixer, we can see There's a lots of different alpha channel that can be used as brushes inside the paint mask. We're gonna use basically the scratches to add some details to the glass panel. So using that paintbrush and making sure that it's set to black, we can start adding these details into the glass panel. Let's make it into the front. So assuming, for example, that this glass panel have been there for a while, definitely some scratches will start to appear in some of the corners, more specifically on the bottom part and on the side. Now you can mix actually another different type of these details and even lower the opacity a little bit. Let's make it over here, for example, and something over there. And also let's rotate it on 80 degree. And in this part, let's use a different type of details. And again, some scratches here and there. This will help us build a more detailed glass panel that will help you to get more realism inside Unreal Engine. So if you look from this side, you definitely can see the details on that glass panel. Don't worry about the opacity level. You can control this inside Unreal Engine, minimize it as you wish. So inside Unreal Engine, after updating our model using Datasmith update feature, we have assigned one single material to all the glass panels so we can manipulate it easily. So double click on the glass material. Right now we have only a color plate that we're gonna convert to a parameter so we can easily change it when we create an instance of that material. So then by hitting S and left click, we're gonna create a scalar parameter and call this metal and connect it to the metallic node. Set the slider maximum to 1 and the default value, for example, 0.9. Control W to duplicate this and name this specular. And let's put the value of the specular to 0.5, for example. Control W again. Connect this to the roughness and don't forget to change the name. And let's put a smaller value of that roughness to 0.02, for example. Now before setting up the translucency material, let's see how the current reflection of the material that we have created without any opacity will react in our scene. Okay, so we can easily see that there's a reflection happening on the material. So we can also add a few spheres into our scene just to see how the reflection happening on these panels. So we have created just a basic different color material. Let's duplicate this by hitting Alt and move the cursor by left click and assign metallic material again by pressing Alt and left click. We have 3 spheres with different materials and we can see that there is a reflection happening on the glass panel. Now we are going to talk about the reflection quality later on, but for now let's see how the translucency will react when we activate it. So again, back to the material. To set up a glass material, you have to make sure that your blend mode is set to translucent, and to make sure that the light will go through the glass, we have to go to the translucency and the light mode to change the surface, change it to surface translucency volume. Then we're gonna create a node and call this opacity and connect it to the opacity, and let's make the value again the default value, let's say for example 0.2, and let's hit apply. Alright, so now that we have a glass material applied to these glass panel, we currently have few things that we need to address. First thing is that we cannot actually select the object anymore because it's now have a translucency effect, And you can easily fix this by going to the settings and activate allow translucent selection, and then you will be able to select it. Now, we currently have no reflection happening on the glass material, and even after adding from the visual effects a spherical or a cubic reflection capture, which will capture the reflection into your scene, you still cannot see any reflection happening on the glass panel. But if you look at these two different materials, the silver and the gold, you can see that there is some reflection happening, but nothing happening on the glass. So let's get back to the glass material and activate the screen space reflection. Once you activate this and hit apply, alright, so now we can see that the reflection is started to happen after activating the screen space reflection, and we can see that there is a message telling us to build the reflection, and you can easily do that by going to the build and just hit build reflection capture. So at the current moment, our build lighting system that we have set up here is using the Lushang GPU lightmass using GPU light build process, and you can easily do that by downloading the GPU lightmass files from the link that was provided inside the forum for this topic. And then you're gonna head to the Dropbox, download it, and then when you download it, just copy the files and paste it inside your program files inside the Epic Games installation. Basically, it will replace the engine files and convert your light process baking to GPU process. And it's gonna be faster if you have a stronger GPU card, and also more accurate in terms of contact shadows. So we're gonna build this and come back after the build have finished. So after the GPU light build have finished, we cannot see any much of difference in terms of the reflection and in terms of the quality of that, because right now the problem with the sphere reflection capture, it is basically calculating the reflection based on the screen point of view. So for example, assuming we are looking at this metallic spheric material, when we come closer to it, we can see that the floor is fading out, and when we go far away from it, you can see the reflection is coming up and reflecting all the surrounding. If you are building an architectural visualization project with a solid or a flat glass panel, the best way to get your reflection in this situation is by adding a planar reflection. The planar reflection basically will act as a reflection to all the surfaces that is in front of it. So if we move it to this location closer to the glass panel and hit G to go into game mode, we can now see that the reflection is happening continuously as it's in real time, which actually is much better than the spheric reflection capture. However, there are some limitations to it. You cannot actually use more than one planar reflection in your scene. So if we duplicate this, for example, and rotate it to this side, make it closer to this glass panel, and move our, for example, reddish spherical over here and go into game mode, we cannot see the reflection happening on the other planar reflection. So hopefully this will be fixed by Epic Games in its later version. So this means that you will only be able to use it in the situation where you have a rendering going on this point of view, or an animation is happening. So another thing we can also add to the planar reflection is the quality. If we go to the parameters for the planar reflection, we can see that there are a few values that we can tweak. For example, we can clear the roughness to 0, so we have no roughness happening on the planar reflection. Another value that we can manipulate also, the resolution on the screen percentage. So if we increase this, for example, to 100, we can see that now the reflection is getting more sharper and more clearer, which can also help to give us a better value, but also on the cost of that performance. So if we hit Ctrl H, you can see that the current performance is okay because we don't have anything else in the scene except the building and the walls. So now that we have the option of using the planar reflection after setting up the material, the glass material, we can also have a look at the ray trace, the reflection when we activate it inside our file. So I'm going to activate the ray trace and then restart and see how this is going to go. So after restarting the engine with ray trace enabled and removing the sphere reflection capture and the planar reflection, you can still see that we don't have any clear reflection on the glass. And this is because that the translucency is not active yet. To do that, from the window, developer tools, bringing the output log or activating the console command using the tide key. And this is the key next to number 1 on your keyboard, just in case you're looking for it. And typing this command r.raytrace translucency and type 1 and hit enter, and immediately you will see the reflection is happening on the glass. However, we still don't see any light going through the glass. To fix this, with ray trace mode enabled, now I'm gonna add a post-process volume, and to make sure that the post-process is affecting the whole scene, I'm just gonna type unbound, and this is the infinite extent option. I'm gonna activate it so we make sure that it's affecting the whole thing. And going back to the console command, I'm gonna write r.raytrace translucency reflection. Now the default value is set to 1. I'm gonna set it to 0, and immediately we'll see that the light is going through the glass. Now if you go back to the post process and hit, for example, reflection and start to play with the values here, you set it to 0, you'll see that no reflection is happening. And if you set it to a higher value, you start to see higher quality for this reflection. Now I'm not sure if this is something I'm doing wrong, but it seems like you have to deactivate the reflection in the console command and then going back to the post process to increase the value. Now let's set it to, for example, to 5, sorry about that. And let's look at a few values here also for the reflection. If we go to the reflection, we can see now that when we enabled all the reflection parameters, look at this sphere metallic reflection on the gold. When we set the maximum bounce to 2, we can now start to see this reflection is more clear. Now another feature we can take advantage of the ray trace inside Unreal Engine. If you look closely to the glass panel from the back, you can see that the back reflection, the reflection of these panel is now visible on this back glass panel that we have created earlier in Blender. Remember, we have created a front and back. Now I'm gonna create a reference from that glass material and select all the material. Select all the glass material with the same material and apply that instant glass material. And let's activate all the parameters that we have created earlier along with the color. I'm gonna now increase the opacity a little bit so we can see now that we have a reflection from inside and outside, which for an Archviz project is really handy in terms of realistic rendering inside our project. So now that we have set up the glass inside ray trace, let's see now how we can set up also the details that we have created in Quixel Mixer for the glass material. So I'm gonna go back to the same materials that we have created. Now from our first master glass material, we just duplicated this and we added our texture that we have created for this glass panel and added a multiplier for the glass color. Now when we decrease the brightness of the glass color, we can see now that the details of that texture will start to disappear. Now this is really handy in terms of adding, as we have said before, details for the glass. It can be very useful in terms of adding like an icy look to the glass or a broken glass if you're planning to add more details to your glass. Now changing the color also will help you change the color of these scratches, and going darker will make it less visible. So let's stick to the white color and just make it a little bit visible. Now opening this project inside Unreal Engine 5 with the Lumen enabled, we can still see that the reflection, even with the Lumen enabled, is still not there. And this is maybe because this is the early access of Unreal Engine 5. Now regarding this texture streaming pool message, if we go to the console command and write r.texture streaming, just set it to 0 so you'll get all the textures and it's high quality. We can start to see that the textures are more clear and with its highest quality. So in terms of reflection, it seems like Epic Games is still working on Lumen to activate a better reflection inside the engine. And if we try, for example, to bring a planar reflection to see how this will react also, and rotate it, now in terms of quality it seems like it's nicer, of course with lighting, global illumination enabled, with Lumen enabled, but still we are facing the same problem of the reflection issues as it is without Raytrace mode enabled. So hopefully this will help you guys to understand which is better for your project to use in terms of reflection for the glass. Seems like Raytrace is the best solution to produce a high quality glass reflection. Of course it will be affecting the performance in terms of real-time projects, but if you're targeting rendering or animations, it will be your best choice at the current moment. Hopefully when Epic Games solve the reflection issues with the Lumen, we will get also another option without the need to enable Raytrace. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and if you have any question, please share it down in the comments, and see you in the next video. Thank you.